Portable Pandora's boxes. They come in many different shapes, but also different kind of variations. So when it comes to the Pandora's boxes, we do have all kinds of different coalitions with a pie or with a Pandora's box. Well, which one is actually good? So that's actually what I wanted to talk about today. So let's close them back up. Because we're going to be putting them side by side, doing a quick overview, and just doing quick. Let's just chat about which one are actually worth picking up. But when you're going to be doing a side by side, of course there is a price difference, but it's not like gigantic. But what are the positive and the negative sides with the pie or a Pandora's box? And what are actually the differences? Because in the end, so far I have checked all of them. So both of the kits will come with the needed power supply and of course the joystick, because you do need to assemble them. And so far I've seen with mine, it also came with a very nice, let's say, very thin protection bag to bring it with you with ease. But when it comes to the parts itself, there is not a lot of difference there. Or actually, yeah, there we go. It's also the length, I think. No, they're exactly the same. So for example, we're going to be testing out the buttons. And they're not using semi buttons at all, but more like these semi-long travel Chinese versions. So yeah, the overall button quality, that is similar to all of the Pandora's boxes I've reviewed throughout the years. And these things are not inexpensive, but it would be cool if they give you a little bit overall better quality. They're not like super bad, but I'm a little bit nitpicky about these things. And the same goes for the joysticks. So assembly is the same. But first of all, when you're going to be looking at the joystick, do have nice, okay, feel to it. Nothing comparable to a semi or high quality joystick. But with the Pi version I bought way later, it feels slightly different. But not like to the point, this is like a premium joystick. But don't get me wrong, like with the buttons, they're good enough. And you're going to be trying to play, they're just good enough for playing fighting games. So let's start off with the Pandora's box. So we do have two different versions, what I understand of. This is the brand new ZSH 3D series. We also have one with I think the Pandora 3D games. Where I tell you that the Pandora game 3D is absolutely one of my favorite ones. One of the reasons why I'm not the biggest fan of this, because the overall clunkiness. So first of all, we do have category, so that's great. So in here we're going to be having arcade, PS1, PSP, and it's clear, you know, this works fine. But if you're going to be getting to the recent, okay, search and having settings. But you know, you need to choose all to have like one all list. There are some limitations over here. So for example, if you're going to be searching for a game, let's say Metal, you already see that there are a lot of duplicate games. And I think that's absolutely horrible. There's no list where you do have these massive thumbnails. And I think that is one of the things I just hate about the Pandora's box ZSH. I don't want to be sounding too negative, but there is always something they keep messing up, you know. Where Pandora Game 3 was quite good, I must say that when it comes to this particular model, man, I really started hating it again. So when it comes to these Pandora's boxes, they are kind of great when it comes to putting it in our arcade machine itself, because they have like the coin settings, free play, and a lot of cool out-of-the-box options. But this is not something we're going to be needing for a portable stick like this one. So we do have like some volume adjustment, and we can choose what kind of exit mode we want. Of course, you can put in coin if you want a little bit of authentic, like pressing the button to actually start the arcade game. We do have like the image optimization. There's more like this weird filter, like HD, scan line, and everything. But that's it, you know. Like there is no aspect ratio, stuff that we're already asking for years now. And you know, it's kind of a little bit of an, we do have burst settings, stuff like that. But it is not like the stuff that we actually wanted. And I think that is one of the downsides to the Pandora's box in general. Or you need to find yourself with the Pandora Game 3D, slap yourself some Pandora upgrade on it, and that software have utilizes in built-in 4x3 and actually so many better features. But that's not enabled with this particular model. That's quite unfortunate. Ratio, if you want to, so that is kind of cool. The audio has been set to maximum now. You can lower it if you want to, over here from the tiny buttons left up. So navigation with everything works quite nice. Okay, so let's see, let's go back to the under aspect ratio. Widescreen craziness. There is no way of, let's say, having an easy button for switching to shmups. Would not make any sense to put this thing in a different position than, of course, just how it actually like stands now. I did notice a lot of difference in audio levels between the emulator, so it's quite annoying. So I needed to load it all the way to 10% now. But another problem is that we don't have this very cool, let's say, option that we can play together through, let's say, this special system so far I have seen. So let's get into the game. Normally you could have the option for a second player. So that makes like a second game cool, but kind of pointless. But let's get into the emulation to see how it actually works now on this more powerful machine. So far, it runs better. The button mapping is completely strange compared with the normal portable or PlayStation game. But beside that, I can say that the overall emulation is better now. We're still running a game that can be easily emulated. But so far, so good. But Mortal Kombat 4, for example, with the PlayStation 1 emulator runs perfectly, no problem whatsoever. It does run on native resolution. But so far, so good. So the weird thing is that I still have the idea there is a filter or some of the games. So far I've been testing a couple of games, emulation of the 16-bit era seems to be working just fine. But out of the box there is a little bit of a downside to this because this doesn't come with a complete set. No, there is a lot of stuff actually missing out on this. So that is quite unfortunate. But there is also some PC Engine on here, and I'm still so flabbergasted about the overall quality of the PC Engine system. Not only the audio, but visual-wise, this thing was so much more superior to the 8-bit NES of the time. Games look just great. But getting into the game, with the PlayStation 1, I do have this idea there is an audio delay in there. So when it comes to the overall emulation, where we do have more power now, where I can actually play more games, or at least like a better overall performance. You can also see some weird thing going on at the left and the right over there. But let's just switch back to a widescreen resolution. See, is it still over there the problem? And I can tell you, I was just messing with this particular game and I really enjoy myself. However, the downside is that, man, we do have some minor glitches here and there. And that's it. You can see that it runs like a charm. Two-dimensional games are running quite well. And if you accidentally turn it off, you don't need to be afraid that your Pandora's box is going to be broken, because that is one of the convenient things of these Pandora's boxes. You can just turn it on and off without any problem. But let's do a quick recap of some gameplay. What can you actually expect from the Pandora's box? It does have the same intro. But that brings me to a quick revisiting of the Pandora game 3D. I reviewed this, I think that was the first two-player portable that I ever reviewed. And I can tell you that I must say that after looking at it for some time, this thing was slightly different in my opinion, but when it comes to the Pandora's box, like say the main board, I think this was one of my favorite parts. So let's do a quick recap, and we're going to be explaining you what is the difference, because when it comes to the joystick and the buttons, they didn't really change out anything here. So when it comes to PlayStation 1, there we're going to get some good performance. You can test all kind of games, but in the end, what you're going to get is great performance. And that I think is very cool if you like deep dive into the PlayStation 1, bring it on the go with this portable device. What I find always a little bit of a bummer when you're looking into certain platforms like N64, and what I already mentioned before, that we do have a compatibility issue with some particular games, and Killer Instinct Gold is one of those games that doesn't run great. It stutters, it has glitches going on. It's also depending what kind of level you're playing. But again, what N64 is, it's just going to be in hit or miss. When you're looking into the 8-bit, 16-bit era, that is just absolutely running perfectly when it comes to a device like this. So where I always like pinpoint and basically bitching about stuff that doesn't run. Of course, as a reviewer, I just wanted to see what is actually running and what kind of stuff did he improve. So unfortunately, when it comes to some of these, quite expensive products, they just slap in a Pandora's box like a Pandora Games 3D. That is quite nice. We can maybe upgrade it, but it comes with a lot of, let's say, problems when you're just going to get it out of the box. And I think that is quite unfortunate. But again, it's not always that bad. Pressing pause, we can make a quick save, quick load. Alright. So what I do see that I didn't switch the filter off in the special menu. And the reason I'm saying special filter, because when you're looking at it, it looks a little bit weird, not like pixelated. And I know the filter does complement this particular game. Small audio delay, like more of these boxes have. Quite unfortunate. But let's take a close look at some more 16-bit stuff, and I can tell you it runs just perfect without any problems. Also, this will have the special filter, already mentioned before, with Game Boy Advance. But I don't really hate it, or sometimes you have this. Also, the scanline function. The scanline is always a little bit strange to me, but when it comes to HD filter, especially when you're going to stretch it up to bigger screens, I really like about this particular menu of the Pandora Game 3D is just how it all works. We're having the all list that we have the first generation Pandora's box is absolutely horrible, but then we're having category where we have different kind of platforms. The platforms, in my opinion, like PlayStation Portable and 64, they should disable it because a lot of stuff doesn't really run great. 8-bit, 16-bit stuff. So when it comes to, let's say, the Game Boy Advance, almost more like, Game Boy Advance with a filter, okay, it's still playable, but we're getting into, let's say, a super wide screen, like Tetris, that is not the way to play. Then of course we're having the 8-bit and the 16-bit that runs just great. With Dreamcast we do have a lot of issues, so also this can be removed. So the board itself has a lot to offer, restand, and of course we're having the search function. That works quite nice, but sometimes I notice if you need to load up a lot of stuff, it feels a little bit choppy. When pressing the tiny button, I already mentioned that we're having the special menu. This is more like a menu where you can mess around with the coin settings if you want to mess around with that. Auto exit. I normally set it to disabled simply because I want to keep the game running. The image optimization has been set to HD. We also have scan lines. I really don't like the scan lines, by the way, because they look very strange. Or can just disable it, but everything will look extremely pixelated. For example, when it comes to the Game Boy Advance. And of course we have some messing around with the key settings, but it's quite limited. But what do we actually get when it comes to the Pandoras? Yeah, you already seen it. We do have Dreamcast and Dreamcast emulation. There was nothing much going on because out of the box there seems to be nothing in there. 3 and 4 player. There are actually some configuration where you can plug in controllers. And I think that is one of the positive things, that we can just plug and play and it works quite easy. PlayStation Portable is the same situation, that it really struggles big time with the Pandora's games, where it is actually playable, but to a certain point. We do have actually a little bit of a situation where we don't have all of the games working perfectly when it comes to the PlayStation Portable. So where we have some glitches and weird things going on, I did able to have the option to just play some, let's say, Pac-Man. And I can tell you, I was just messing with this particular game and I really enjoy myself. However, the downside is that, man, we do have some minor glitches here and there. And that's it. You can see that it runs like a charm. Two-dimensional games are running quite well. And if you accidentally turn it off, you don't need to be afraid that your Pandora's box is going to be broken, because that is one of the convenient things of these Pandora's box. You can just turn it on and off without any problem. And then that brings us to the Pi 5. So I'm just going to be honest, out of my head, I don't know exactly how much of a price difference it is, but this thing actually offers a lot more if you just want to play old school games. So the Raspberry Pi is a pretty cool overall system, and I can tell you, if you just want to play games, I can tell you that this thing has so much to offer. Upgradability, of course, with Batocera we can get new updates if you're going to be pressing into the start, and this is one important element. If you do love to tinker, if you want to mess around, add new stuff to it, even maybe new emulators in the future, you do actually have the option. We can just tinker with it and have a lot of cool things we can do, and that is of course one of the positive sides with the Raspberry Pi. You can also add yourself a second screen if you want to and have all kinds of cool options. Stuff you don't have with a Pandora's box, and not even to talk about all of the missing platforms. So we have been chit-chatting about it in the main review, and I can tell you that when it comes to the overall performance, where the Pandora's box still struggles with N64, the Pi doesn't really have a lot of struggles there. But also it utilizes a lot of different platforms like a PC Engine or a PC 8801. That's stuff that we don't see on Pandora's box, and I think it will never happen. And I think that is one of the things that I just love the Pi for. So the question remains at this point here is like, the Pi does have like a little bit of downside. So for example, if you had to shut it down, you need to actually shut it down. If you mess it up, you're going to be messing up the overall image. And what happens then? You need to reinstall. And I think that is one of the dangerous part of a Pi, or at least like the only dangerous part actually. But when it comes to performance wise, this thing is absolutely so much more superior than a Pandora's box. And then that makes the question more like, is it not even pointless to buy a Pandora's box at this point? To the overall emulation. So I think the Pi is absolutely an overall great device normally, because we can just play all kinds of very cool games that we could have with the previous models. Oh, it was almost. Gotcha. You cheesy. Oh! Wonders like what's going on when it comes for the emulation performance. So we had like a lot of weird thing going on with the Sega Dreamcast. With Naomi we don't have the flickering of the screen so far. But also emulation performance on the resolution, this is great. We can even do a little bit of tweaking if you want to, but take consideration, it will push this thing to its limit, unfortunate, and we do have some limitation there, but system 2, and this is absolutely pushing the Pi to its limit. So that's kind of interesting to see what's going on. Oh yeah, that stutters. This is a great example that this is just way too far, but it's kind of cool to actually see the Naomi 2 systems now. But this is freaking playable, or at least for me when it comes to that. Let's kick some ass. Let's rock. Performance of the N64 is actually, like say, really cool now, and the question remains, how did they set it up? Let's mess around with the controllers. I think I need to play with the controller now. Yeah, so that they actually like set up. The controllers are absolutely horrible. Like, that's one of the things I really don't get, because these things are so inexpensive when it comes to like looking into decent ones.
Go for it.
But no, okay, the joystick has been completely disabled, so we need to use the controller. The flickering now is right from the emulator, not from the screen itself. But the emulation performance, yeah, this is great. We can actually play it. And of course, thanks to the two-player configuration, if you're going to be playing games that utilizes both of the controls, we can just do that. And also select and start over here, bringing you to the main menu itself. But it's kind of cool. So if you want to put an extra monitor, let's say on the machine, somebody can watch it like on the bigger screen, that is actually possible. But this is a great example of like how good the display looks. Over here using an Ilyama is a quite good monitor itself. We can see how bright and beautiful the display inside of the machine is. Device is plugging in an external device. I can tell you is that this thing is absolutely looking amazing. So this is kind of funny to say, is that when you're looking at this particular product, the display doesn't give this, let's say, beautiful display out, simply because the Pandora's box is running on 720p. Where my Switch is running on way better overall, let's say, quality. Oh man, I really hate playing with these Joy-Cons. But nevertheless, when you're looking at this, it's just great. So you can use this device actually like the device that it is with a Pandora's box, or use an external device. Connecting it through USB, it's going to be absolutely, I'm just a pain in the ass. Because I've been messing with it, but I couldn't get this Pandora's box set up on my Switch itself. Even with Pro mode, I think it's Pro controller enabled. Then is the question, what is the best portable for you? I think that's the answer you only have. But when it comes to performance and options, man, I must say that the Pi version is so freaking cool. And we can do so many cool things with it. Where we do have like a lot of limitations when it comes to the Pandora's box itself. At first I wanted to actually see if I can just get myself a Pandora's box and just swap it out with something else. Because in the end, I don't know what to think about the Pandora's box. But one of the cool features that the Pandora's box have, that we can actually play Tekken 6 and a handful of games in 2-player mode. That actually never been intended, because the PlayStation Portable has always been a 1-player handheld. So it's kind of cool that they implemented this. Get ready for the next battle. Wow, the audio of these things are pretty good. Had some really weird things with booting up, but okay, it actually booted up. However, so when it comes to, let's say, plug and play, and you know, it's super easy to use, the Pandora's box is in that case just fine, particularly if you want to play just old school games. But if you want to have more games like Dreamcast, maybe even Sega Saturn and 64, we do have overall way better performance when it comes to, let's say, the Pi version. Thank you all for watching. I hope this video clears up a lot of questions, and it will be great to see you in the next video.